Hello interwebs and welcome to Closeup. I'm your host Joe.
And I'm Justin.
Headcanon is either a necessary coping mechanism for fandoms or a stubborn refusal of reality. We will see. We're gonna go over some pros or cons today about the benefits of headcanon to fandoms. And as ever, it'll be hard to not talk exclusively about Star Wars here. But I have some other examples in mind today.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, what is headcanon if you're unfamiliar with the term? Usually, headcanon refers to fandoms ignoring the maligned sequels or spin-offs of a beloved intellectual property, often to protect the viewer from plots or characters which retroactively harm the original. That is my definition. So, we're going to go into some pros and cons now. So, the first pro I can think of for headcanon is that for your average enjoyer of entertainment, especially for the most beloved of IPs, stories can be a comfort to people. So, if I get to choose what really happened, especially when I really didn't enjoy what happened, then I'll feel better. Preserve my own childlike sense of comfort, in a way, and try to set aside any not fun feeling anger about anything specific. You brought up a good point the other day. Yeah, sometimes.
Oh, a different
on occasion.
day.
Yes, not related to our fandoms specifically, but just for going off the rails a little bit, talking about our D&D game, where we were talking about when our game ends, our 3.5-year game at this point, it might end up finishing at 4 years. I don't know. I've been playing the same character for 70 sessions in 3.5 years. And you've been going for about 57 with yours. And if this ends and we happen to go on for future installments in these characters' lives, because they're still young, if we save the world, finish the campaign, whatnot, we could still come back. You brought up the point of treating any future installments like headcanon, potentially, to avoid ruining a potentially fitting ending. And that's a good example for something that's pretty personal to us and maybe other people who've experienced TTRPGs, something that's very much not even talking about intellectual properties, but just something we created in terms of we don't want to ruin an ending we're emotionally invested in. And it's hard to get even more emotionally invested than a character you built from scratch and played out for 3 years.
Well, yeah, you invest so much time into it, and then it's like you bring it to a close. Well, you don't want to tarnish that afterwards.
Like, you still want to bring it back because it's fun to inhabit these characters again. It would be a shame to never inhabit these characters again. But also, you kind of want to say, well, the ending was the ending, and the next stuff we might be able to loop in if we actually liked it. Oh, you know, that really happened in main universe. Yeah, because it actually went well. Or we brought them back and character assassinated them and killed them. Like so many legacy sequels do.
Star Wars.
You name it, Star Wars is the tip of the iceberg.
Uh-oh.
But, yeah, you really want to do that? No, that's just bad vibes. Why would you want to ruin a story you personally spent 3.5 years investing yourself in? Because it retroactively ruins it. You worked all that time just to get a good ending, and then you rip it to shreds. Just for nostalgia? Just to come back and do it again?
Because you want more. You're too greedy.
Yeah, and that goes for external stuff or stuff we make ourselves. Con, it's silly. The idea of headcanon's just silly. Stories happen. Stories continue, often with the same actors, same creative teams, what have you. And we just stick our fingers in our ears like children and say, la 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 la, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist.
If I don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist.
Like it's in the world And it's very clearly a sequel. There's a number in front of it and everything where they called it episode 7, 8, and 9, and la 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 la. I'm not acknowledging its existence. Just like people before me didn't acknowledge 1, 2, and 3 were a thing. It's just, it clearly exists. And it's clearly a sequel of some legitimacy. It's not just like literally a fan film. And you're just saying it doesn't exist. And that's childish. So, and I say that as somebody who actively does this myself. I'm acknowledging my own hypocrisy, and I will have to acknowledge it many times throughout this list, I'm sure, because I simultaneously disagree with the concept of it, yet practice it on the daily as a fan. And that is the dichotomy I'm forced to live with. So I'm going to skip back to a pro. And this is really my last one because there aren't too many pros to headcanon.
Oh no.
The only other pro of headcanon is that you can honor the intentions of the original creators on occasion. Or at least that's how fans wrap their brains around it. Well, an original creator made something that I loved, and then they sold out probably to Disney. And then the new franchise owner made continuations or spin-offs or prequels, what have you, that I didn't like. And the original creator had nothing to do with this. Therefore, the only thing I think of is legitimate is the original stuff. Even if the creator was the only one to not return, nothing else counts. I think a good example for this one is the Terminator movies, where we can say James Cameron made 2. He created the Terminator. He wrote and directed Terminator 1 and T2 Judgment Day. And despite having his name as a producer credit on most of the other ones, T3 on don't exist. T3 Salvation, Genesis with a Y, Dark Fate, none of that should count. Terminator is a 2-movie franchise made by James Cameron. It got an ending in the second one that actually wrapped things up, and then they kept going for some reason, looping back on itself in increasingly convoluted time travel logic that retcon previous movies in multiple reboot attempts. And just because it has Schwarzenegger in it, I'm supposed to say it's legitimate?
It's a cash grab.
Well, exactly. That's an example of one that has very little artistic merit besides the first 2. And I don't blame anyone for saying, yes, despite these movies literally being a sequel to Terminator and Terminator 2, those are the only movies with any artistic value and were created by a guy with a vision. Therefore, why are we still watching any Terminator movies? Dark Fate was the most egregious, where they literally shoot somebody in the face and in the opening scene, and you're just like, well, okay, way to spit on the franchise legacy, why don't you? And that is what we have to deal with as Terminator fans. Another one is like Jurassic Park. I could probably argue like why you did the first one and Spielberg came back from the second one, Lost World. There's a little bit of legitimacy there. And Jurassic World was even kind of good. But why are we coming back here? The story had an ending. Jurassic Park was Jurassic Park.
See, the ones you're mentioning, when I watched the sequels beyond what I would consider the actual canon, it really does just feel like fan films feel.
Yeah.
It feels the same way, where it's like, this doesn't make any sense to the story, and character motivations are all over the place. Like, it just feels like a mess. Like,
yes,
Jurassic World. Okay, Jurassic World is pretty good.
Yeah, Jurassic Park 4.
The ones after that are like, I'm like, huh?
Yeah, Dominion's no good, or Fallen Kingdom, or I don't even remember what 5 and 6 were.
Like, they just throw out these ideas that are just so ridiculous, and you're like, this doesn't feel in the original spirit whatsoever.
Yes, are they still in the original timeline? Sure. Did some of the original actors come back later on? Yes, they did. It all is in the same timeline and continuity. Do you care? Probably not. Do you wish it never existed? Yes. Do you want me to stop asking questions? Uh-huh. Most definitely.
Listen, they just become mid-tier garbage or less movies, and that's it.
Basically. The next con I'm going to bring up for headcanon is going back to what I was saying before about headcanon effectively being a way to protect yourself from the negative feelings of something you once enjoyed. You could also flip that coin and say that headcanon, as a rule, is about ignoring hard emotions and just repressing things that make you uncomfortable, and not always with good reason. Because just because you don't personally like it and it makes you angry doesn't mean it's objectively a poor product you're taking out of your own headcanon.
Well, yeah, I've got a personal experience with that one. I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians when they were coming out.
Yep.
The original series was, I loved it, and it had a fantastic ending, and it was good. Then there was the sequel series, and I read the first one, and they're like, Percy Jackson forgot everything, and we're starting from scratch. And I'm like, this is stupid.
Close the book.
Close the book. This is dumb. And you know what? I actively choose to ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. But you know what? That sequel series is just as beloved by tons of other fans.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm I stop myself from something that I might have enjoyed because of that reason. Because I'm like, no, I choose to ignore that this exists.
The example I had written down for this, though, was Dial of Destiny, where Indiana Jones 5, a lot of people were upset by it. They're like, oh man, this is like James Mangold's going to redeem Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. He's going to give us another great indie movie to stand the test of time. And then it was just okay. And I really do think it was just okay. I really don't think it was bad. I reviewed it on this show with Ryan a couple years ago. And it really was just fine. But people took that in the most absolute way fandoms do, where they freak out and said it was the worst thing ever, ruined everything. Indiana Jones is one especially where people really just want to remember the ending being Indiana Jones and Henry Jones Sr. and friends riding off into the sunset at the end of The Last Crusade. You actually had the cliche in a good way of they rode off into the sunset and then they brought it back for number 4 and 5.
Well, I think that's the difference between, like, we're talking Indiana Jones versus the Star Wars sequels, where, because you said, oh yeah, Dial of Destiny ruins the whole franchise, but Indiana Jones had an ending. It had a second ending point. It always had endings, where something like the sequels, retroactively, the episode 9 ruined everything to episode 7 because there weren't endings. Nothing ended. It was ongoing. So that I understand, retroactively ruining things, but when you're dealing with a franchise that already has endings, you kind of can ignore stuff. You can drop stuff off, I think.
Well, because that's what life goes on, right? I mean, there's no such thing as a happy ending for real, even if you have a happy moment or section of your life. Life goes on. Indiana Jones riding off into the sunset in his mid-30s, he still lived a very long time. and went on more adventures that weren't necessarily emotionally satisfying. And we see him grapple with aging in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny, and seeing some of his mistakes come back to bite him.
I guess you're right that people don't want to see the
aftermath,
the harsh reality of continuing on after the credits roll, basically.
Yeah, but also by the main point I'm trying to make for this particular point, at least, is that something like Dial of Destiny, I don't think is objectively poor. And it's totally written off. I think it's a frustrating Indiana Jones movie, but I think it's a perfectly fine movie that gets even more hate because it's a franchise continuer. You're kind of ignoring okay things just because you're upset that it exists. And that is a energy I don't like in the world. So another con, which is also kind of a similarly, going back to the sequels, sometimes good things exist within otherwise bad things that you want to write off. I don't like the Star Wars sequels. I think they very much undermine the ending of the original trilogy, which had a clear build up, and then you basically, personally, a lot of problems with the sequels might have been solved if they picked a different threat that wasn't like basically just the Empire again. I'm going off on a tangent, but the thing I like about the sequels is Kylo Ren. I am not sad that Adam Driver's anti-hero / villain exists in the world. I think he's a memorable villain for the late 2010s in that era of movies. And I'm sure I could pick out others too. I really enjoy that the cast that it introduced, by and large, like as a stepping stone for better things for Daisy Ridley, John Boyega. Oscar Isaac was already kind of big. Brought Mark Hamill back from basically obscurity or, voice acting banishment. It brought him back into live action roles. There were good things about them, in them, and around them. It basically brought practical effects back to Hollywood movies as well. There's a lot of, the special effects work is amazing. They're gorgeous visual feasts, those three movies there. There's a lot of good things in otherwise overall bad products.
Well, and without it, they kind of learned from that, and we've got things that people love, like The Mandalorian came from that.
If the sequels bomb, we don't get The Mandalorian.
I think that's the hard part, dealing with fandoms versus starting something new, is that if you start something new and it's bad, then it just goes in the garbage. But if you continue on a fandom, it's just, there's a lot of pressure riding on that. But the problem is they have to find somewhere where new people can experiment with stuff.
Well, that's also my next point, actually, is the idea of headcanon makes fandoms a nightmare to navigate, because literally everybody in a fandom has a different idea of what they consider real or not. Their idea of what makes a franchise good. And the great irony of that is that it sometimes spirals into a refusal to admit what your IP is actually about. Sorry, Star Trek is woke. I'm sorry, it's been woke for 60 years.
No, it's not woke.
You can't watch a Star Trek show and complain about wokeness. I don't understand the people who do that. I'm like, what do you like about Star Trek if you don't like social politics? Yeah, I know there's a lot of heady sci-fi and it's not all just that, but I'm like, don't act like it was never there for 60 years.
It was always woke.
It was arguably the first woke franchise. That's the prime example I have in my mind of fans who can watch something that entire time
and still not get it.
Yeah, and still not get it. In their headcanon, Star Trek isn't a woke thing, it's a space adventure series or whatever they think it is. And I'm like, yeah, that's because headcanons and fandoms are allowed to pick what's real or not in their heads to such a degree they fundamentally miss the point. I don't like anything woke in Star Trek. Okay, but then can you call yourself a real Star Trek fan if you're ignoring... Like, yes, I mean, for argument's sake, I don't want to be the toxic fan who says you know you're not a fan because you don't get what I think is the fundamental thing about a franchise. That's where toxic fandoms come into play. But that's also the problem is sometimes there are just core things about a franchise that make it what it is. And then people's headcanons turn it into something completely different, which you have to accept as legitimate to be a positive fan base. It's kind of a Ouroboros snake eating its own tail. I'm like, well, I have to accept your stupid take on Star Trek if I want to be a positive Star Trek fan. I can't tell you you're being illegitimate even though more evidence is on my side. It's very hard to do that and maintain a healthy fan base. And that's why all the major fan bases are just constantly infighting, because everyone's got their own ideas about what constitutes what, and I don't count this. Star Trek doesn't exist for me after after Next Generation. Deep Space Nine totally misses the point. Oh, actually, I think Deep Space Nine's the most politically relevant Star Trek show that explores the deeper, darker elements of Gene Roddenberry's Utopia. Nope. That's not what Gene Roddenberry envisioned whatsoever. Gene Roddenberry died during Next Generation, and that utopian vision where there's not really many flaws in the system, that's it. Going to deeper, darker places and turning the Federation into morally corruptible bad guys goes against the vision entirely. And like, this was 30 years ago. Forget about Star Trek Discovery or Picard or whatever they did, and bringing back legacy characters on top of that. It's like, what's real?
I've got a good example too with Neon Genesis, where it's not even a new creator has gone into, it's the same creator responding to fans not understanding, not fully getting the point of the original series, and goes on to make reboot movies to make it more clear that it's like, yes, my point is escapism is bad, and then people are like, well, I don't like that take. And exactly. It's like, but the original creator came back to clarify what they were talking about in the first place. And it's like, well, that's not my Neon Genesis. Like, I've literally seen comments like that. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
But so you can't have discussions with anybody because you're always trying to pick through, the people who are open to discussions or the people who are closed off in the discussions. And they're like, nope, none of this happens.
Exactly. Here's another example, going back to Star Wars. I'm just thinking about like Andor, where people are like, wow, since when did Star Wars get so political, and like, why, like, what's up with like this good and evil thing, and like aren't the Empire kind of good guys? Like, there's a lot of people, I shouldn't even bring in Andor specifically, but a lot of people unironically think the Empire were good guys.
What?
Yeah.
Who thinks that? No way.
There really are a lot of people who unironically think that the iron-fisted will of the Empire enforcing order was a more safe and secure society.
Well, I guess I can see an argument for that.
No, see, there is an argument for it, but also these people call themselves Star Wars fans.
But you can't.
The entire point of the franchise is rebellion in the face of fascism.
Oh.
And you're rooting for the bad guys.
It's just you gotta be aware that your opinion is
cutting
in
against
direct
the grain
opposition of
to the messaging.
But then there's people who aren't aware of that.
I'm like, what are you getting out of this? What made you like Star Wars if you're the kind of guy who likes the Empire? I don't get it.
Why would you enjoy this?
I don't understand how people interact with the world occasionally.
Oh, man.
But in their headcanon, they cherry pick the information to say that, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, unironically.
Oh my god.
They can make full-on arguments in their head that line makes complete sense.
The Ewoks are disgusting for celebrating the downfall of the Empire.
Using the helmets of their deceased foes as drums.
It's just messed up.
Yeah.
Star Wars, the darkest ending possible for a series.
Pretty much.
At least to the fans who like the Empire, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with these people. But yes, this is what the conversation is becoming, is just headcanon and fandoms are very frustrating to navigate. That's what I'm getting at, is you can both watch a piece of art and take away things that are completely opposing somehow, even though the messaging is clearly saying one thing in most cases. And this is why fandoms can't agree. Ever. Because you get the guys who think the Empire were good guys, or the guys who think Star Trek wasn't woke. Ever.
Are you sure these people aren't just messing around?
I know trolling is a very common thing, especially in the last 20 years, but I think, well, also media literacy is just going by the wayside. That's a big factor as well.
That doesn't help.
But then there are plenty of people who can argue, I don't want to say in good faith, but a lot of people know their franchise enough that they can argue their points. It's like I was just saying with the Empire is good thing. I just rattled off a bunch of points to say why people like the Empire.
The Outer Rim was safer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you see in the prequels there was still slavery the Republic couldn't manage, and the Republic system is so corrupt, and
are you sure that wasn't George Lucas's point? Was that maybe it was better?
See, this is what people.
And then Disney went on to say, "Hey, we look what happened. Even though they rebelled and changed everything, didn't work out. And another government came in to take control over everything, make it safe again."
Yeah, see, this is where they miss the nuance in things, because I'm like, yes, the prequels are establishing a Jedi Order that is very more rules-oriented than faith-oriented, gets way too involved in a crumbling democracy, and then a more orderly system took over, but somehow that was worse. People are like, they see the flaws and are like, Republic and Jedi are bad. That's all there is to it. Empire was better. And that's their headcanon.
My headcanon is the Separatists were right.
Well, that's another one that I actually agree with. I do concur with that. They just wanted a peaceful separation.
They just wanted independence.
They just wanted independence, and the Republic fought a whole war about it. And
like, no, you can't leave.
It just so happens the bad guys were in charge of them. But you know what? I told you we're trying not to make this about Star Wars. It always becomes about Star Wars. But headcanon, it's difficult. I'm a whiny fan baby for engaging in it, despite thinking that it's wrong. But also there are no objectivist interpretations of art. So everyone's entitled to their wrong opinions. I will argue them, and then stick my fingers in my ears and pretend other stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's called being a fan. You get the right to, you know, everything about your fandom, and then when somebody tries to tell you that you're wrong, you stick your fingers in your ear, you play a child.
Yep.
That's it. That's the simple answer. And that's why fandoms on the internet don't work, because everybody's a child on the internet in their fandoms.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone.
I will listen to your takes in good faith as best I can, but when I hear certain takes that are just so bad, I'm like, oh, it's infuriating. Okay, here's another one that's got me riled up lately. Is the discourse around James Gunn's Superman, I didn't realize how thoroughly brainwashed Zack Snyder got an entire generation of people into thinking that this is the definitive take on Superman. This tone, these themes, this presentation. An entire group of people think that this is the way to do Superman. Where I'm like, this is the outlier. This is the first time he's been like this popularly in 80 years. And people think this is the take. I'm like, it's a take. It was a popular take. And now people hate James Gunn and David Cornsweet for doing a more traditional take on it. And they're like, well, to them, that's whiplash. Because they've only known one version. And that's crazy to me. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you can say that is Superman. And it is. It was a legitimate, funded effort. And people are really attached to it. But I'm also like, as a more well-rounded fan of this franchise, I think it is more of an Elseworlds effort.
Isn't that also a headcanon, though?
Well, that's how I justified it all those years. Being a Zack Snyder fan and a fan of his movies, I basically justified it as a headcanon experiment instead of a, hey, this is a definitive take on DC. I'm like, no, this is just a really interesting Elseworlds take on it. That's not really my version of the characters, but I can see what you're doing with it. Like, that was me trying to be in good faith and just going along for the ride.
I'm just saying, I still think that's a version of headcanoning where you're like, yeah, it's not the main canon, it's an off canon.
Yeah, and then there's ones like that. That's a whole different point where in these multimedia franchises that have been going on for 80, 100 years, what do you consider the definitive version? People will consider, like the Batman's one, do you consider Zack Snyder's version? Do you consider Ben Affleck? Do you like Robert Pattinson? Do you like Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan's more grounded take? Do you like Michael Keaton's more fantastical take? Adam West's totally campy take?
That's the real one.
Yeah. Do you like comic book Batman? Well, comic book Batman's completely different. He killed people in the 1940s. Do you like Robin and the Bat Family? A lot of people hate that. Do you like gritty detective-driven Batman? Do you like Batman with the Justice League? Do you like what do you want? There's a million different versions, even just in comic books. There's no definitive Batman.
Well, it's funny because you can't even boil it back to like, oh, the first version is accurate because
it's the most.
That's the one that people would consider the most inaccurate.
Yeah, the first version of Batman is the most wildly different to what we get. So, like, what is everyone's favorite Batman? Somehow Batman the Animated Series is, like, to me, the most distillation of all the best elements of everything, even comic books included. I'm like, no, Batman the Animated Series is, to me, the definitive take, but everybody's got their own, is the thing. Ben Affleck is just as legitimate to people as Adam West is to others. And that's weird. But also art, and you can't deny that.
I don't know. I think Adam West had it correct with the weird guy wearing his underwear on the outside and dressing up like a bat.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bum.
Like I think that's the true interpretation of superheroes is that they're all just weird people.
Okay, so you're in the more Frank Miller camp where he's just a crazy guy who dresses up in his underwear and says, I'm the goddamn Batman.
Whoa.
This is the guy who nearly should be locked up.
Probably.
And that's kind of how Frank Miller writes him. There's a take for that too.
Maybe I need to read those comics.
The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. I'm not really a huge Frank Miller fan on his interpretation of Superman specifically, but his Batman is like, okay, well, that's interesting. Not how I see it, but...
It's an Elseworlds. It's not canon.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a take. I see how you got there, but... That's about it, I figure. Personally, there's more cons to headcanon, but that's the dark ending to this episode is I'm still going to participate exactly the same.
Listen, to be fair with headcanon, by allowing it to exist, it brings people happiness.
Well, that's the first point of the whole thing
So,
is that, and that's the, yeah.
You know what? We consume media to bring ourselves joy and happiness and stuff. Just don't drag it onto the internet, though, because that just creates the opposite.
I think you're hitting on a good idea there of how to bring these two halves into cohesion of the pros and cons of headcanon. Headcanon is perfectly great for you. Headcanon is bad when you're putting it on anybody else.
Basically.
When you're trying to tell other people that this is the way it is, no matter what your take is, that's when you run into problems. But if it makes you feel good to think that Star Wars isn't political, then that's fine.
Yeah.
If you're the type of person to think the Empire is good, the social consequences of that will follow you into life, I'm sure, at some point in your other beliefs.
Well, maybe that is a negative point, is that media is also supposed to teach lessons, I guess. But arguably, I mean,
well, that's a media literacy conversation. Is people not understanding like that? Like it's a part of headcanon, but like,
I mean, arguably, who are these creators to push their ideals on us, anyways? So you can take whatever you want from whatever media, because you're not guaranteed that the person who created the media and pushing the message is pushing a good message, anyways. So
I'm sure there's many English teachers sort of moments where people took good messages from bad things anyway. Not necessarily morally bad things, but just like, okay, well, I didn't really mean that, but sure, it's a positive impact in the world. But, yeah, I mean, people are just people who create things, and you can accept their ideas, you can accept some of them, or think you're accepting some when you completely don't understand, but that's fine. And enjoy what you enjoy. Just don't make others feel bad about enjoying what they enjoy.
Yeah.
Although I know as fans, it's very, very hard when you're disagreeing. You have to argue why your take is the only appropriate one, and that's what we have podcasts for. To throw our ideas into the ether about what makes good media good media. I do think there are some cases to be argued for objectivity in terms of media criticism, but also when it comes to ideas, that's pretty, and people's interpretations, that's all subjective. All I can say really as a critic when it comes to anything is, this is what I think you were going for, and I'm judging it by how well I think it succeeded in that.
yeah, I guess so.
And then subjectively, did it impact me? Okay, and here's why it didn't, if that is indeed what you were going for. There's a bit of a guessing game involved. A lot of times. Anyway, so that is headcanon discussion. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at jchurchtpm.
And you can find me on Instagram at ThoughtPlaneMedia. And check out thoughtplane.ca for everything else we do. There's hundreds of posts there for free. And you can donate $1 or $2 there if you like our work and you're feeling generous. We hope to see you on the next close-up. Till next time.
Take care.